I didn't even want to have to use this because it feels so formal, whereas I said hi to most of you as you came in. So thanks so much for being here tonight. I'm Christy Cregan, and I am the Lake Tahoe South Shore Chamber of Commerce. And with me is Brandy Bannister, who is the president of the board of the South Tahoe Chamber. And we're so happy to be working in collaboration to be bringing this fire forum to you tonight with all of these guys and more. So we're so happy that you're here with us. And the way that we're gonna do questions tonight is we're gonna write them on the index cards that are around. So if you wanna now hop up and grab one, or we'll bring them to you too, okay? I wanna thank the Lake Tahoe Unified School District and Dr. Cutler for hosting us tonight in this beautiful building. And I also want to thank the City of South Lake Tahoe for the video support. So this recording will be on Channel 21, which is the city's channel, and then will also be on the Tahoe Chamber's YouTube channel, so you can watch it later, send it to your friends, okay? Because we're not live streaming it. So briefly, our agenda tonight is we are doing the introductions. Then we'll have our panel behind us, which will be moderated by Chief Jim Drennan. Then we have a special guest who will be here with us in a little bit, and that's our Senator Marie Alvarado Gill, and she will be speaking briefly. And then we'll do a question and answer, and as I said, it'll be on index cards. So please think of your questions. And now I'll turn it over to Brandy to introduce our panel.
All right, thanks everyone again for coming. We've got up here Scott Lindgren from Tahoe Douglas, Brian Newman from CAL FIRE, and with him Jeff Hogue. We have Eric Walker from the Forestry Department, Chad Stephen from with Martin Goldberg, and Jim Drennan.
So with Division Chief Jay Manning here.
You good?
Sorry. Good evening. I was told we were going to do just a brief introduction. The purpose of this forum, as it was sort of propositioned to us, was the Chambers of Commerce came together and decided that this would be a worthwhile event for the community, especially following the fires in Palisades and Altadena. I don't want to spend a ton of time discussing highs and lows with that event. Certainly it was very impactful for Southern California. We all sent resources, all agencies here sent resources down there. One of the first times that I've sent a strike team in January. But before getting into sort of specifics about that, I want to recognize that really the point of the evening is for you all to interact with us. And on the stage, I haven't done the math, but it's probably upwards of 150 some odd years of experience, especially if we add in these guys down here. So there's an awful lot going on the South Shore and honestly all the way around the basin. Very briefly, with Lake Valley and the city, we stood up what we call the South Shore Division. The South Shore Division interacts with the Forest Service, CAL FIRE, Tahoe Douglas, RCD, and the CTC, just to name a few, on a weekly basis. We are actively engaged on a daily basis, but the point of that is to coordinate projects, fuels reduction, home hardening, and as opposed to each individual jurisdiction doing their own thing sort of in a vacuum, we are actually on the phone and or meeting with each other face to face almost daily. And if not daily, definitely every Thursday morning. So I bring that up really just to let you know that there's an awful lot going on behind the scenes. And with you here today, these folks will kind of introduce themselves as well. I'll pass the mic here in a minute. For those of you that don't know me, yes, my name's Jim Drennan. I'm the fire chief here at the city. I've worked here since 1999. Started out with Lake Valley. But I'm going to pass it along because the point of this isn't really for us to just sort of speak at you. We're sort of looking forward to having questions from you. So that's for you.
We're just going down the line?
Yeah, I'm just going to let you introduce yourself.
Chad Stephen, Fire Chief for Lake Valley Fire. Thanks for coming out. Just a forum to get information and communicate. answer any questions. We're really, we're in our infancy with the city and Lake Valley and building the program that Jim's talking about, the South Shore Fuels Division. Really happy with that, the collaboration and coordination we're having, and being the advocate and the voice for the community with other agencies, Forest Service, CAL FIRE, Conservancy, and getting work done on those lands. So that's our goal, and improving evacuation routes is a high priority for us. So we're working towards that, and our chiefs below us are working hard, really planning the next projects, and you should. Oh, that just cut out. But I'll just leave it there, and we'll pass it along.
Thanks, Chief. Hey, good evening, everybody. My name's Eric Walker. I serve as the Forest Supervisor here on the Lake Tahoe Basin Management of the U.S. Forest Service. Joined with me this evening is Victor Lyon, our Vegetation Staff Officer, as well as Todd Flowers, our Fuel Staff Officer for the unit. So as I'll try to do the best I can to answer questions that may come up, but after the Q&A, I believe there may be some additional time. So if you have some real specific questions around U.S. Forest Service operations, both on our fire fuels and our veg, I encourage you to get with them. I want to thank all of you that are participating here this evening, taking precious time out of your day to interact, and this is a great way for all of us to learn, for me to learn what's important to you, for you to hopefully learn what's, from all of the wisdom that Chief Drennan mentioned here that sits and that's in the audience. I also want to thank our partners that are here, California Tahoe Conservancy, Tahoe Regional Plan, and others. They've already given me the hook and I haven't even started singing to you yet. But nevertheless, as you may all know, we steward 156,000 acres of National Forest System lands on behalf of all of you as the citizenry of the United States. And it's an honor and a privilege to be able to do that and be able to work with all these folks, because as we already heard, partnership is the key. I think you'll hear tonight through responses to questions and stuff, you're going to that we are, and I can use my fire voice and just talk out loud, but that we don't get anything done without collaboration, coordination, and we do that not just with staffing, we do that with funding, we do that with ideas, and where we go to make a difference. And so hopefully you'll walk away tonight really getting a broad understanding of the collective effort that is out to make our forests healthier, make our communities safer, and to address the needs and most importantly, keeping that big blue pond blue and all the things that we all came here to be community members of, keep those things in place as the best we can. So thank you for inviting me here, and I pass this off to my colleague in crime.
All right, good evening. My name is Brian Newman. I'm the Assistant Chief with CAL FIRE. I oversee the CAL FIRE operations in the southern part of Lake Tahoe Basin, basically El Dorado County side, and then also for Alpine County. So with CAL FIRE, we have the statutory responsibility for the wildland fire protection over the state and private lands within California and then within the basin. But that's just one part of the bigger picture and all the puzzle pieces that come together. We also, with our crews, our hand crews and our fire engines and our staff here in the basin, provide workforce and knowledge and leadership to work alongside with our partners to work towards the goals that we're all recognizing and already been spoken about here tonight: fuel reduction, community safety, home hardening, defensible space, etc. So, I don't want to necessarily repeat what's already been said very well before me, but really thankful that you are all able to come out tonight and hear what we have to say, and hopefully provide some good questions for us to be able to provide the feedback that you're looking for. And just know that we are actively working together as a group amongst all the agencies, regardless of color of uniform or patch, or ultimately whose responsibility it is. Ultimately, it's just working together as one collective group to move forward as we need to.
Awesome. Awesome. Hey, good evening, everybody. I'm Scott Lindgren. I'm the fire chief for Tahoe Douglas Fire Department on the Nevada side of the lake. And a lot of good things have already been said about the collaboration and the cooperation and working together. And I think that everybody in this room kind of understands that anything that happens in the basin, regardless of the location, 2 states, 5 counties, it affects everybody in the basin. And so having us all work together with the different agencies on our projects and coordinating our priorities together is super important. We have this little thing you've probably heard of called the Tahoe Fire and Fuels Team. And that is a huge thing for us working together and setting our priorities together so that we can accomplish our goals of protecting this beautiful place that we live in. But thanks for coming tonight, and I hope you can walk away with some satisfaction of knowing that we're doing everything we can to protect you and protect this beautiful place that we live in.
Where did you want us to go from here, Christy? Oh, I think he's making his way to the microphone now. Okay.
So I'll just say in loud voice that now Dwayne Wallace and Steve Teixeira from all 2 chambers will be collecting any questions that you've written on index cards and asking them of the chiefs.
I had a couple that were pre-selected. I've been warned not to tell any dad jokes tonight, but nobody said anything about bad jokes. Do you know the definition of chaos?
Chief has arrived.
Chief has arrived on the scene, yes. All right.
Familiar.
One of the main questions that has come to us pre this meeting is evacuation. People are worried. One part of it is with large developments such as Palisades and others, Sugar Pine coming in, they're worried about whether that would affect the overall evacuation. And the other is they just want to make sure that they understand what the options are in evacuation, not just the routes, but is there a evacuate in place where you hang, like a football field or whatever.
Awesome. Great question. One of my favorite topics. First off, do we have an evacuation problem in the Tahoe Basin? Absolutely we do, right? There's only so many ways in and out. In a catastrophic fire, in a fast-moving catastrophic fire, could that be a problem for us? Absolutely it can, right? What is our number 1 priority with the Tahoe Fire and Fuels Team? It is the fuels reduction along our evacuation routes. That's our number 1 priority because we want to get those fuels reduced so that if we do have a large evacuation and people are stuck in their cars, they don't burn up. But one of the points that was just brought up with the question is very important to understand. We kind of went through a phase here recently in the Tahoe Basin where the public was screaming and really wanted us to put up signs that said, evacuation for wildland fire, go this way. Tsunami, right? Like when you live next to the ocean and it says, this is the tsunami evacuation route, we want you to go this way. With a wildland fire or a different emergency, we might not want you to go a certain way, or we might not want you to leave at all because of the conditions of the fire or of the evacuation routes, right? And so really good point was made. There's a lot of different things. Sometimes we're gonna ask you to actually leave. Sometimes we're gonna ask you to shelter in place, which means stay in your home and take some certain precautions in your home. And there's sometimes that we're gonna move you to what we call a safe refuge area or a staging area where we want you to go to a location like a high school, like the high school in Zephyr Cove with a big football field. During the Palisades Fire in California, when that evacuation occurred and there's only so many ways in and out of Paradise, a lot like the basin, the roads got jam-packed and we started moving people into locations like Safeway parking lots and stuff like that to temporarily put them in a safe location until the fire front passed or we can get them moved into a better location. So I guess the big point that I'm trying to make, and it came from the way the question was worded, is you need to be ready to listen to what's coming from law enforcement and fire on what we want you to do in that evacuation, because it can make all the difference in the world of getting you out of there. The other really big important thing that we like to bring up with evacuations is the Ready, Set, Go program. And if you don't have information on that, you can Google it, you can look at it out there, but it prepares you on what to do in an evacuation. You know, we did a huge regional evacuation plan recently that was a first time for this area and probably the first time for a lot of areas where multiple jurisdictions all came together and came with one document, a regional plan, because evacuation in the Tahoe Basin is complicated. Both states have different laws, Nevada and California, and with those different laws come different language. And so we don't use the same terminology from state to state. That causes a problem when the Caldor fire in the city of South Lake Tahoe was evacuating, and then the residents in Nevada are subject to different laws and different terminology. So we are working together to try to get that on the same page between the two states. But that regional evacuation plan was really good in a lot of ways because it showed different areas and what the terminology is and what the laws are to try to prepare our people that way. Really important to mention, we don't have any law enforcement here today, right? The evacuations are 100% the legally of law enforcement. But I will tell you that there are partners, and we work together on how we're gonna do an evacuation and where we're gonna do the evacuation and when we're gonna do the evacuation. So really important to stay informed. That's probably the biggest thing that you can do to prepare for evacuation is make sure you're getting good information. That Watch Duty app that's out there now, I love it. I tell people about it all the time. And if you're on that Watch Duty app, how many people have the Watch Duty app or know about it? Okay, Watch Duty. And so if you don't have it, you need to get it because it's a great way to notify you when there's an evacuation or an emergency and give you fire information. And then when the Forest Service or CAL FIRE brings in a large incident management team and they're running that fire, information on evacuations from the Sheriff's Department and the different agencies or the command team all gets plumbed through that. And regardless of which program they're using for evacuations, one big one up here at the lake is in 4 of the 5 counties uses Perimeter Solutions as the evacuation software. It doesn't matter if you're on watch duty, it's gonna give you the information that you need on where to evacuate, which way to go, and what the fire's doing. So some great information out there. So if you're talking about evacuations, you gotta be informed. I hope that kind of answers it.
What significance do the larger developments that are being planned, Homewood, Palisades, any of that, are they any significant concern to you in evacuations?
I would say they are because of the population. What the biggest concern, I would say, is the older developments, because the older developments don't have the same regulations as the new developments, meaning the widths of the roadway, the exits and the amount of exits in and out of the community. So if you're building a brand new community, it's going to be a lot more strict and a lot safer because we have a lot of new regulations that are going to go into effect.
I would add to that, when you're talking about a new development, say it's 60 units or 160 units, the data that we receive on the number of people visiting the lake on a daily basis makes that new development kind of a drop in the bucket in terms of sheer numbers that you're looking to evacuate in any given moment. The other thing that I would point out is that, like the chief was just saying, anytime you have a brand new building, like Sugar Pine here in South Lake Tahoe, that's being built to the newest code. And because we all know that there's an issue with evacuations, oftentimes buildings like that, large complexes that are brand new, they are sprinklered, they have fire resistive siding and Class A roofs, we're probably going to tell the people that live in that facility to stay put unless situations dictate otherwise. But that building will usually be able to withstand the fire front initially. So a lot of times that new development, when you're talking about new versus old development, the issues that we have mostly in the basin are issues of homes built in the 50s and 60s and close together. And, they're what we would call I just lost the term. Basically, pre-existing non-conforming is what I'm looking for. So it's just one thing to think about. I don't know that any of the fire chiefs want to weigh in on policy about density capacity that TRPA is dealing with, but just strict black and white conversation about density and a new development. Keep in mind the entire picture, which is to say those buildings are brand new, they're built to better code, they're sprinklered, they're much more resistive. So.
And if I could just add to that, on what we really like right now is not new development, but redevelopment, because we're kind of developed out here at the lake, right? We don't have new developments going on, but we have old non-conforming developments that weren't safe, that now as they get newly developed or redeveloped, they bring them up to code, They make them safer for our communities, safer for the environment. And so a lot of good things happen with that new redevelopment. We're not getting new neighborhoods added. We're getting old stuff kind of tore down and redeveloped. That's a good thing, to get it to conform and be safer for us and safer for the environment. So we like that.
All right, thank you. So Steve Teixeira, my company is Sustainable Community Advocates, and in my company I have a couple of different clients. One is Tahoe Chamber, and the other is I have the honor of working with the local fire districts. And one of the questions here is, it's an easy one, but it's a very, very important one, and probably a couple of the chiefs will help to answer this. What is the Community Wildfire Protection Plan? Where can I see it?
Yeah, I think,
He doesn't even need a microphone.
Yeah, I'll give it a go. So thank you. I'm Martin Goldberg with Lake Valley Fire Protection District, so Battalion Chief. The Community Wildfire Protection Plan, there are a lot of partners in here today that probably could add more to what I'm about to say, but essentially it was developed in collaboration for the entire basin. The Tahoe Resource Conservation District led that. The funding came for the California Tahoe Conservancy, and it outlines our future plan for it to be renewed. I've been a part of 3 of them at this point over my career, being that it's 2025 just renewed. We brought in some new aspects, some new concerns, some new areas that we wanted to address. It's a very lengthy document. It is available on our website, Tahoe Living with Fire. Help me out. Is it on RCD's website? So Tahoe RCD's website, and Living with Fire /Tahoe. So maybe it could be easier, obviously, but it is you can find it even off of links of our other websites.
So
It's
let me jump in and just
incredibly
add.
detailed, right, Chief?
Yeah, just to add a little bit of context to it, without that community wildfire defense plan, we can't do the work that we need to get done to protect communities in fuels reduction, right? So a lot of grant money and funding gets channeled through that comes through grants. If you don't have a community wildfire defense plan that calls out those things that you need to do in there, you're not going to be able to get the work done. So that's why it's so important that we get it updated on a regular basis, and that it's a collaborated effort between the whole basin. So the whole basin is a part of it. And so we're really excited about the new version of this because it hadn't been updated for about 5 years. And there's times have changed with fire in the last 5 years. 5 years ago, people weren't talking about evacuation the way they're talking about it now. And now in the CWPP, we address that. And this gives us a means to be able to get the work done right.
I think there's 2 parts of it that are really important. You can look at your own neighborhood, your own fire district. You can get information, and you can also look at the basin as a whole. So you get the idea of what the chiefs are talking about, of the great amount of collaboration. And again, the Watch app, if you want to really be in tune with information that's being put out there if there is a fire or other emergency disaster. So I got a couple questions here for our forest supervisor, and I know he can guess what they are. With all the cuts and the strange chaos going on at the federal level, people are concerned about more ability to hire seasonal firefighters. So what can you share with us about that? And the broader question of, does this all mean that the Lake Tahoe Basin Management Unit gets dissolved?
Thank you for
No,
that
big day.
question, the member of the audience, and Steve for reading it. And so, yeah, I'm sure you've seen a lot in the various sources of media, whether online, printed, or otherwise, around changes that are being brought under the new administration. I want you to rest assured that we are fully staffed in our fire response efforts. Let me repeat that. We are fully staffed in we are currently still hiring. We have not had reductions in numbers of people responding. We have not had reductions in funding coming to us in order to be able to answer the fire bell when it rings. We are still seeing money coming in. We'll be getting our final budgets here soon around the preventative work. So the fuels work that we do, the healthy forest work that we do to lessen the likelihood of the fire bell needing to be rung, but also giving our greatest chance to be able to mount an aggressive response when that fire bell does ring and have a high probability of success. So I am confident that, you know, fire comes in basin. The other thing I want to point out is it's not just us showing up to the fire bell. I'm surrounded by people who bring their resources to when that fire bell rings. We have a policy of closest responders first. So whether it's on the national forest or it's on non-national forest system lands, the person that's closest to get there to start the aggressive attack on it is occurring. So again, it shows the partnership. We've broken down boundaries so that we can keep our community safe, minimize the threat that wildfire brings, both on the response to the fire bell and in advance. So Steve, to your other part of the question around, does this look like we're going to dissolve? There are folks who may have been hearing things in the media and stuff. I have nothing to report to you, and I'm being sincerely honest with you, that we're going to be absorbed, dissolved, or anything. There is change. I will admit that there's change. Some of the change, I'm not sure what it will look like, but as long as we have the staff that we have on the forest doing as much as they can with the fiscal resources that we have and with our partnerships, because we've always relied on our partners for the primary Forest Service mission. So whether that's in our fire response, our addressing forest health, or the public services of recreation and otherwise, we've always benefited from many of the folks that are in this room, as well as many that aren't in here. So change is happening, but I don't want you to feel like that is something. Be the news, though. You have the ability to communicate what is important to you to your legislators so they can then ensure that the right actions that represent your values are being heard and can be addressed and brought through the legislative channels. You have opportunities to engage with me so that I can inform my bosses up the chain of command of what's important to our communities and work to ensure that we're getting those provided to you.
Thank you very much. And I was remiss in not inviting the police here. God made it the police so firemen could have heroes. But that's just the one question that people are a little bit confused by is number one, what is a WUI? And I know that sounds like a funny word, but it's an important one. And the other is, how do we as a community convince the Conservancy and the Forest Service to be able to help clean some of the lots that they've got in town?
So, so for folks that don't know what WUI is, it's an acronym, a WUI, it's Wildland Urban Interface. And as we all know, being residents in the Lake Tahoe Basin, that's us, that's all of us. There's not a person in this room that isn't living in the Wildland Urban Interface, and there's not one entity that's up on stage with me that isn't helping to make our lifestyle in that space as safe as possible. We cannot eliminate all the risk. We cannot, but through efforts that we do, and so much importance, and I'll give Mike time to my colleagues here to talk about what you can do, what's that important stuff around home hardening, but it takes all of us to make it safer for us to be here and to survive and weather in a healthy way, as healthy way as possible, a large wildfire. So to the other question, part of the question around managing the urban lots. The U.S. Forest Service, along with California Tahoe Conservancy, and to a lesser degree, the Nevada Division of State Lands, have acquired parcels over the years, largely back in from 80s up through the early 2000s. And while we still do some acquisitions for this, these acquisitions were made under various legislation, federal and state, in order to buy up parcels that had environmental values that if they were developed, it might cause degradation to the lake and the waters of the basin. And so through those efforts and through legislation and money, our respective agencies acquired, you may live next to a parcel that has a CTC placard on it, or might have the little yellow U.S. Forest System, National Forest System lands. And so that they're urban parcels. Sometimes we think of the Forest Service as this big, we're managing the big parcels of lands. Well, and this is unique for us. I've worked all over the country, and we normally don't have this, but here in Tahoe, we have this unique opportunity. Challenges. So we do manage these lots. It may feel like there are times that it's like, what's management look like then? But remember, we're managing these lots so that we don't have adverse impacts on water quality. So we may not always want to be removing all the vegetation. Sometimes we utilize these lots for urban runoff so that we can get infiltration of water off of our streets and off of our other parcels so that it doesn't make its way to the lake and cause impacts to that. And so we do regular inspections. We have ways for you to reach out and contact us on the National Forest. I would encourage you, if you have specific questions, or if Milan has a wish to say anything during this question and answering. Lots, we do work together. We try to utilize both our money and our crews to work together on those parts. Makes sense. We work with our local fire districts to understand that. They've helped with things around hazard tree removal, identification. There is opportunities for folks for home hardening or defensible space work to reach out to us and be able to work on in those Forest Service lots. I can't speak for the California Tahoe Conservancy lots. And so we do work with them to make them less likely to be the reason a wildfire would get started, or that a wildfire, if it were to come into the area, would then pose an unmanageable risk to life and property. But I welcome any thoughts from my peers up here.
I do have one comment on the urban lots. This is specific to Forest Service and the CTC here in the city anyway. One way that I try to look at this is through just an objective lens. And that is to say that the city itself occupies a fairly small geographic space. Lake Valley actually responds pretty deep into El Dorado County. Tahoe Douglas has a lot more land. We have a lot of buildings, and we're fairly concentrated. We also have a very robust fire department with very robust mutual and auto aid agreements. And I say that because as structure fires go, as vegetation fires go in the city, and I would argue in the county as well, in the developed areas of the county as well as Tahoe Douglas's district, our response times are very quick, very quick. As an example, in the last 25 years of my own experience in the city, I have yet to see a structure fire extend into an adjacent structure. That's just objective data, and I can't remember a time that happened in Tahoe Douglas's district. I can't remember a time that happened in Lake Valley's district. the amount of BTU, the amount of heat energy coming off of a structure fire has got to be a magnitude of 10 as compared to a single vacant lot and the fuel that's on that lot. I think a lot of times we look at these lots as residents, neighbors, and probably we bought our house next to an empty lot because nobody can build on it. At the same time, now that we're seeing these fires propagate as much as they are, now we, and that's all of us, myself included, we tend to be concerned about that lot adjacent and whether or not it's cleaned up, quote unquote. Objectively and respectfully, if a fire were to start on one of those lots, my expectation is that 99 times out of 100, that fire is going to be mitigated very quickly. The concern I think that most of us have has much more to do with a large fire coming in from outside of the area, impacting the community, getting a full head of steam, getting a start someplace that we don't have quick access to. The Emerald Fire was really nervous, if you remember that one a few years ago. Door fire, the Angora fire, we have plenty of examples of those fires where damage did occur. And so I'm not discounting the idea that we would clean those lots or that they should. I think that's certainly something that can happen, that needs to happen. However, objectively looking at the way that we address any sort of a start within the city, within Lake Valley's district, Tahoe Douglas's district, I would just point that out, that we have a very quick response time to those things. And I don't foresee, there's no data that really supports a fire starting on a vacant lot somehow turning into a true conflagration. So as priorities go, we, with the Lake Tahoe Basin Fire Chiefs, through the TFFT, that's why it's been said a couple of times that our primary priority right now is those evacuation routes. Our primary priority is shaded fuel breaks and fuels management around the perimeter of our cities so that, in our communities, so that we have a fighting chance. Firsthand experience, both of us during the Caldor fire got to witness firsthand the fire moving into Christmas Valley and then hitting a treated area and slowing down and getting down onto the ground where we had an active way to actually engage the fire and keep it out of those houses. That's the work that really matters.
Our California State Senator Marie Alvarado Gil is here. I'm going to give her a minute to come up, but one more question for the chiefs, and then after the senator, we'll come back to the chiefs. So how does the fire alert camera system work?
I'll tell you all about it.
Right. Yeah, it's a very extensive system. So as you may or may not know, there are many cameras on various types of facilities around California and specifically around the basin. The basin itself, well, in California itself, there's nearly 1,000 of these cameras across the state. Within the area, the view shed of the basin where these cameras can see in, it's somewhere around 20, 25 cameras, which is a very concentrated amount of cameras. Those cameras are used in a number of ways. Obviously, the public can view them and see what's going on and where those cameras are pointed, if they're pointed at a specific incident or an item of interest. But they use them to validate or verify reports of fire or smoke. And they use that information to be able to bolster a response or change a response depending on what is seen in that camera. The responders themselves, we also use those cameras. That gives us a better perspective of what's happening. So, the old adage of a picture is worth 1,000 words is very much appropriate here, because this, rather than trying to have someone describe to us what is occurring, we're able to see what is occurring with that fire and where it may be moving or where it may be impacting. We also use the alert wildfire cameras for prescribed fire to make sure that we're meeting the intent of where the smoke that we're producing on a prescribed fire, is it moving the direction we want it to go? Is it lifting and clearing the basin, or is it impacting a community that we don't want it to, and therefore we change our approach and or our firing techniques to try to limit that impact. So it's a very extensive system. It's like I said, There are many dispatch centers, or all the CAL FIRE and Forest Service dispatch centers throughout the state are able to utilize it. They're able to manipulate the camera, point, zoom, focus in on specific areas, either by the report that they get from a 911 call or at the request of the users in the field. And some of our cameras that CAL FIRE sponsors also has AI integrated into it so that they are able to quickly alert and notify of any new fires. They scan automatically, and there have been numerous cases of very quick reacting responses from a camera that were faster than a 911 call. Some places upwards of 4 or 5 hours faster in remote areas. And so this technology is improving every day, and it's just one part of the vast technology that is occurring for fire detection all throughout the state and the western U.S.
Thank you. And our response time in our fire department is extremely fast. I remember one time there was a fender bender, somebody ran into a fire truck, and the fireman said, gosh, that's the fastest we ever got to an accident. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to our state senator, and thank you for coming.
That's on. Thank you. A lot of friendly faces in the room. Good to see you all again. Thank you so much for inviting me to be part of this very important forum. I tend to come out to the basin every few months, and the #1 topic that brings me out here is wildfire prevention and resiliency. And so I just want to talk a little bit about what we're doing at the state level and what we still yet need to do. And I think we're going to have some time for question and answer. Is that right? Yes. So I think what we'll do is, as I share a couple words, if you've got some questions, Todd White is here with my office. He'll collect those questions and get them over to me, and we'll see how we can answer some of your questions today. All right. Very good. So I'm Marie Alvarado Gill, and I've been serving as your state senator now. This is my 3rd year. I live in Jackson, just over the burn scar of the Caldor Fire. I, like many of my community members and neighbors, felt the impact of that devastating fire, not only the day of the fire and the weeks after with all the smoke and having to leave our homes and not know where our animals were going to be cared for, but in the many months and years afterwards where the impact of the fire has impacted our housing costs, our utility costs, and certainly our insurance costs. So these devastating fires have really exposed more for California than just scorched earth. They've revealed that a crisis in California has been growing for homeowners insurance and other aspects of our economy, such as our ability to sell and purchase homes here in California. Just 1 year ago in the legislature, we were working with the insurance commissioner on a long-term resolution to the crisis here in California. And days before the end of session, the rug got pulled from underneath us. Unfortunately, the Assembly and the Senate did not agree on the solutions, and we went into yet another wildfire season. So what did that mean? It meant that we knew what the answers were, we knew where we needed to prioritize our funding, but we did not take action at the state level in time to prevent the devastation that we saw in the Southern California fires. But it certainly taught us a lesson. More and more residents are being dropped from insurers, unable to renew or even obtain new policies. For those of us who turn to the FAIR plan, we've met delays, errors, and confusion, oftentimes getting cancellations when we've made our payments, other times having astronomical rate increases without any explanation whatsoever and being asked payments or lose our mortgages and lose our home. Now, with the damage claims from the recent recent fires surging, the FAIR plan is asking for a $1 billion lifeline. This is money companies may partially pass on to policyholders, but it only underscores how fragile and overstretched this safety net program has been. 6 months ago, we were talking with the FAIR plan, and we were very clear as legislators that we were one catastrophe away from bankruptcy. Well, that catastrophe happened in Southern California tenfold. These were multi-million-dollar homes that were lost in Pacific Palisades and Altadena fires. So you know, with all due respect, we have lived through these fires over and over again and have asked for the government to make whole our communities and our roads and to put us on the track of recovery. And this lesson that we saw in Southern California is that we have failed. We have failed at the state level to make those adjustments and make those decisions, those really hard decisions on budgets to ensure that we are ready. It meant that we had reservoirs that were dry, meant that we had infrastructure in place of our waterways that were not able and capable to carry water to where we needed it to go. It meant that our emergency services to look at sending messages for evacuations were errored and caused confusion. And we also saw that millions and millions of dollars in insurance reimbursement checks are being dispersed to Californians who cannot rebuild, who are not able to get permits or to rebuild on their land because of various CEQA and NEPA regulations. So where do we go from here? So what we saw was the governor took early action in the 2025 budget. $170 million were dispersed to our conservancies, including about $31 million to the Sierra Nevada Conservancy and $23.5 million to the California Tahoe Conservancy. So it's a start, right? It's a start, but it doesn't help us rebuild our lives. It doesn't solve the impact that we had of the mosquito fires and the Caldor fire. We know that we need to have better forest vegetation management. We know that we need to have more projects that support wildfire resiliency and rebuilding. But there are several obstacles in the way that we seriously as legislators need to take on. And this is where I come to you for help. $10 million of the governor's early action budget was sent to support wildfire and response resiliency. Now, I can ask my loyal firefighters here, $10 million, that's a drop in the bucket. You can spend that in a day. I mean, I think the number for many of us who are middle class, $10 million seems like a lot of money. But when it comes to the public benefit and public good of protecting our forests, $10 million is simply not enough. So in addressing the topics of natural disasters, insurance and bureaucracy, I've introduced a few measures and I'm supporting related legislation that I'd like to talk to you a little bit about today. I'm the author of Senate Bill 365, which is important for our region. It focuses on the attention of communities directly protected by the moratorium on the availability of coverage through the California FAIR Plan. It requires legislative reporting by the Department of Insurance to ensure that there's accountability and transparency. So I've asked that the California FAIR Plan give us transparent data and documents of one, why we have gotten cancellations and why we have been asked for those increases and how they can make sense of those astronomical adjustments. Senate Bill 696, I've also authored to allow our fire departments, our volunteer fire departments and fire districts to claim a tax exemption on the sale, storage, use, and consumption of firefighting apparatuses, equipment, and specialized vehicles purchased for use. This may not seem a lot, but when it comes to buying multi-million-dollar pieces of equipment is significant. We tried this bill last year and included emergency services equipment, snow removal equipment, and it got voted down in appropriations, so we further narrowed it, wanting to focus on that cash relief for our local fire districts and cities. We hope it's going to pass. We need a lot of support to get it up over the hill. What it means for the state of California is less tax revenue, but what it means is keeping that tax revenue locally, and so that's what this bill is about. Senate Bill 662, I'm also the author. It continues a statewide program that allows for qualified entities, such as local governments and conservation groups and fire safety organizations, to assist CAL FIRE in assessing defensible space and home hardening efforts. This is something that we already have here in California, but it is sunsetting. So it would extend CAL FIRE training program to educate individuals on fire safety and safety measures. One of the reasons I love coming to the basement is because you have one of the top fire training facilities and programs here at the community college. It is excellent landscape for us to build the next generation of fire professionals. And I want to thank all of you, because without you, we would not have been able to have that here in Tahoe. The last one I want to talk to you about is a bill that I co-authored with Assemblymember Joe Patterson, Assembly Bill 687. It streamlines environmental review requirements for certain small-scale, non-commercial wildfire fuel reduction projects in timberlands. So this is on private property. So when we talk about fire issues, when we talk about the decisions that we need to make in California, we have policy issues and we have budget issues. So the policy issues, that's that creative voice that all of you bring to us and say, here's a solution, let's put it into law and let's make it happen. Where we stumble upon ourselves as legislators is in budget action. This is the time where I'm gonna be coming to you and I'm gonna be saying, I need your voices and I need your ideas and I need your demands, because we are the 5th largest economy in the world, yet how we prioritize our money tells us over and over and over again that we are not prepared for the next catastrophic fire. We are not prepared for the collapse of our insurance market, and we are not prepared to make it affordable to live in California again. So with that, I'd love to open it up to questions, and hopefully I can answer them. If I cannot, we'll take them down, and I'll make sure I get the correct answer back to you. Okay. Thank you so much.
So, yeah. So another question for the chiefs, and this has to do with something we learned painfully in the Angora fire, where the fire burnt up some of our water infrastructure. We didn't have enough water to fight the fire, and that was a real problem. That was a lesson to all of us, and that was really one of the reasons why, for a number of reasons, why the Tahoe Fire and Fuels team was started. So we need to collaborate, we need to work together. But more recently, there's been a concerted effort to try to get funding, federal and state, to improve our water infrastructure. So the question is, do the fire hydrants here, this question is specific to South Shore, have full water pressure, and do the hydrants get checked on a regular basis? Chief Drennan.
Pass, no.
Yeah,
I think just hang on. No, that's okay. I can definitely lead into this one. Yeah, so STPUD, especially in the basin, and I know that Chief Lindgren will back me up on this, we have, not even arguably, I think we have the most robust infrastructure in the basin without question. In my time, we've always had, very decent water supply in the city. We've gone to some very large fires. I haven't had the issue of, losing water pressure. We've been right at what we would call laminar flow, which is I'm pulling just about as much as it can push. But the reality is those municipal systems are designed for domestic use infrastructure fires. So when you try to compare any municipal system in the country with what took place in Altadena or in Pacific Palisades, there isn't a system in the world that I'm aware of that's robust enough to manage that. I know there's an awful lot of political back and forth about reservoirs being empty and whatnot, and I'm sure there would have been an impact had they been full, but the point is, typically during a vegetation fire, we're not fighting them from hydrants the same way we do as a structure fire. We certainly need the water, don't get me wrong. But imagine just for a minute, you burn through a neighborhood and everybody's pipes are now open. The neighborhoods that haven't burned, everybody who has stayed put is using their sprinkler systems and using their water hoses. And then you shove several hundred fire engines into the area, all trying to tap a hydrant after they've dumped their tanks. So those systems just aren't really built to do that. Really, I think the crux of the question is, A, do we check them? And B, is there enough pressure? To the first question, fire departments don't typically go out and test hydrants anymore. That's really, the infrastructure is owned by the water purveyor, so they manage that. We can certainly pull data pretty easily. Back in the day when I was a young firefighter, we would go out and flow test hydrants, and LaHontan and TRPA didn't like that a whole lot when we were blowing 1,500 GPM into somebody's rose bushes, but yeah, that's a whole other funny story. But fire departments don't go out and do that. It's not our infrastructure. There's liability concerns there. The pressures are solid, at least within the city. Chief Lindgren deals with 26. How many do you have?
Different water purveyors? Yeah, 26 different GIDs.
Right.
9 major water purveyors for only 900 hydrants.
So I'm real happy with STPUD. Let's put it that way.
Shelley, can you come to the Nevada side, please?
And so I hope that gives at least some level of, that lowers your level of concern a little bit here in the city or out in Lake Valley. The other thing that I can speak to, just since Shelley's not up here on the stage, since the Angora fire, there has been an amazing amount of infrastructure upgrades within the south end of the lake. We had 2-inch mains that went to 6 and 8 and 12-inch mains. Way more hydrants, within a smaller space. Our engines typically carry about 1,000 feet of supply line, meaning I can hit a hydrant and then I can go 1,000 feet before I got to figure something else out before I get to your house. I don't believe we have any spaces in the city anymore that are beyond even 900 feet. I guess the nervous piece there would be if one hydrant happened to go down for a mechanical reason, you might find yourself in trouble, but that would be a lot of bad things happening all at the same time. I don't have any memories of us hitting a hydrant and it not working, and if it didn't, we typically had one right nearby where the next in engine brought water to us. So that's my experience.
Jim, I was on the water board for, I think, 25 years, and that's what went bump in the night for us for many years. We started really heavily in 2004, and the idea was to do something like the wildland-urban interface. And I wish Shelley was here because she could tell you the most recent. But we started upgrading the lines around the town in order to create that outer defense, and tried to get, especially on the...
You call her name enough times.
Yeah. I'll talk quick before you get here.
We don't have
I'm
that cool
stalling
crop
for
that you
you.
have.
We tried to do every 500 feet, and especially at the southwest where most of the prevailing winds come from. And the fire hydrants are checked regularly, and the wells are deep, and there's a interface between all the water companies, including Lakeside, where they have a pipe out into the lake that we probably wouldn't run out of. Did I miss anything, Shelley?
You did a great job, Dwayne. Am I off the hook?
No, keep talking.
Sure. Good evening, everyone. I'm Shelley Thompson. I'm with South Tahoe Public Utility District. So we're the largest water supplier in the South Shore, as well as any toilet that flushes on the South Shore comes to us to treat the wastewater. As you can tell, we work really closely with our fire partners because water is a critical tool in the firefight. So similar to what happened after Angora Fire for our fire partners is we learned a lot of lessons. I'm sure lots of folks in this room remember Angora and the skies turning orange and embers falling out on us. And so what we learned in that firefight was that it hit in a neighborhood where, is it working? Okay, it's back. Where our water infrastructure was undersized. So in Tahoe, unlike urban areas and cities, we weren't developed that way, right? When Tahoe was originally developed, it was small little neighborhoods with, to really supply summer cabins. So out in the lobby, I have a pipe display showing that we still have some, not very many, water mains that were 2 inches. Add fire hydrants to a 2-inch water line, you can only get that much water out of the line. Adding more hydrants doesn't solve the problem, right? So in Angora, we learned that. And so the water districts after the Angora fire around the lake, public, private, California, Nevada, came together and we formed the Tahoe Water for Fire Suppression Partnership, which I currently lead. And so we meet annually and we prioritize what are the most important water projects for fire around Tahoe. Because we know it doesn't matter, like the chief said, right? We have a lot more water districts than fire districts around the lake, but we know it doesn't matter where it starts, that that fire doesn't care about district boundary lines. And so we prioritize these projects. Our ranking criteria, we worked with the Tahoe Fire and Fuels team on. And when I say what type of projects these are upsizing water mains from 2 inches to 8 inches. It's installing fire hydrants every 500 feet. It's adding inner ties. So there's lots, in South Lake, we really have one big water district and then 3 little ones. But like, I'm sorry, Scott. So in Chief Lindgren's district and around the lake, there's lots of tiny little water districts. And so another piece of this puzzle is creating inner ties so that we can move water from district to district, building larger water tanks. So then we go to our federal partners and our state partners. Senator affectionately calls me Stupid Shelley, and I'm here for that. And to talk about how we need help. We have a very small rate base. There's very few people that live in Tahoe. We have a huge forest that surrounds us. We have lots of state lands as well. And so we've been really successful. We've, Milan, I'm gonna forget this number. Over $50 million. We've brought in a ton of money into the basin from federal and state partners to upsize water infrastructure. So no matter where your water is coming from, we are working together as water partners similar to the fire chiefs to upgrade infrastructure. Am I off the hook now?
Appreciate it.
Steve? Can I just add one point on the water infrastructure, if I would? You know, Chief Drennan talked about it. The fire hydrants are mainly there for structure fires and that type of stuff. In a wildland fire, we're going to utilize those, but we're also going to utilize a lot of different things like water tenders in areas that we need to get the water where we don't have fire hydrants. And even along the lake where we don't have fire hydrants, we have fireboat programs where the fireboats actually pump the water from the lake into dry system hydrants that provide the water. So, and then we have water storage tanks in different areas too, that storage tank will provide us the water that we need for that area. So there's a lot of stuff that all comes together, especially for a wildland fire.
A question here comes in one way, but I think there's other ways to answer it. So the question is, are there volunteer opportunities available for citizens to help their fire departments? And I would say that the second part of that really should be, we just can't count on our fire departments to always save us. We have to help. And there's information out front about Firewise communities and how you can be involved at your neighborhood level, because we have to help, not just if we want to volunteer to do something for one of the departments or districts, but we have to do what we need to do in our own neighborhoods. We can't just say, oh, there's a fire, call somebody. So, and a big topic that's coming up that we've talked a lot about, it's expensive, and that's part of the challenge, but that's home hardening. So there's a lot of information available about home hardening, what you can do. There are now people that you can call up and they can come evaluate your home and look at the points of vulnerability that you may have in your home that you should address if you can. But I'll ask the chiefs to talk a little bit more about that, both the volunteers locally and then what people can do in their neighborhoods.
I'll just jump on that one. Yeah, just to take it back, we volunteer programs they were useful in the past. We didn't have the interest, the level of training and education and cost really took away from that option for us. We've gone away from that, but what you can do for us as volunteers, stewards of your property, what helped in Caldor Fire, just like fuels treatments, really taking that defensible space product to your house. It made a difference in giving us a chance to make a stand at your house and stop that progression to a bigger area. So you're looking at hardscape materials up to your house, building your house with non-combustible materials, any wood components that go up to your house, fences will burn, they go straight to your house, so you want to create that separation. Limb trees, remove trees, a lot of these things. We had lots of ember showers from Caldor Fire, and we were able to get to those properties. And interesting enough, we had like AI and the eye in the sky kind of things that were really helping us to identify hot spots. So a lot of undetected things happened out there, but with Christmas Valley was really good. I was impressed with the defensible space around houses, and that really helped us get ahead of it, and as it moved into the forest. Yeah, I think leave it at that.
I have a question for the senator, sort of a question / idea. Our chamber has been approached by companies that have foaming systems for roofs. One company has a powerful pump that can spray water up on your house. As Jim pointed out, sometimes that will take down the water pressure in an area. Do you think it would be a good idea to introduce a bill that said that if somebody has that on their roof that protects their house, that their insurance could be lowered?
Well, I'm afraid to say no to you, so. Well, let's talk about this, because this is where, we incubate ideas. There's a couple solutions that we've proposed. Just in this last early action budget conversation that we had at the Senate floor, some of my colleagues, we proposed funding allocations specifically to rehire our seasonal wildfire workforce. In California, we've made decisions to cut funding so that we have more reliance on volunteers rather than highly skilled and trained firefighters throughout California. In the Southern California fire, single county in California deployed, trained, and skilled firefighters. Some who left home for weeks, months at a time, and left their communities. So what that does is it puts an extra strain on our ability to have our firefighter workforce, because one, we're dependent on volunteers, and we never know when that catastrophic fire is going to hit, right? And it also puts strains on our skilled and trained firefighters and their families, because it takes them away from their home communities to fight fires that can go on for weeks or months at a time. So we've looked at solutions also to help put more money back into your pocket in terms of our insurance ratepayers. And the reality is that we know what the solutions are. We have to incentivize insurance companies to take those solutions and to say, yes, if you are doing your part by creating defensible space and home hardening your home and making those decisions like the foam sprayers to ensure that your home can withstand when that wildfire hits. It's not anymore if, it's when. We just don't know when that is. And unfortunately, we are in an insurance market in California where our insurance commissioner has not allocated approvals to our insurance providers to ensure that they are operating in the black. The insurance companies in California, whether it's now auto, life, homeowner, fire, earthquake, flood, are operating in the red. And it's no longer viable for them to operate in California. That's why we have our very last provider, State Farm Insurance, which is having really tough negotiations right now with the insurance commissioner, and they are asking for a 22% increase in their ratepayers. Now, I don't know about you, but that's gonna blow my budget, and it makes me scared of whether or not I'm going to be able to maintain my mortgage with a 22% increase in insurance coverage. But when you look at the fact of what it costs to have insurance here in California and what we've been paying over the years, the brunt of it has been taken up by our insurance companies. And this isn't the big corporate people that are making the millions of dollars. This is our everyday insurance agents, small businesses in our community that keep things afloat here. So we all need to come together and take those solutions that we know are going to work, and lobby the insurance commissioner, because he has been given the authority by the voters to make those decisions, those hard decisions, to ensure that it is affordable to live in California. And right now we know that there's a failure in that office, and we need to continue to come up with solutions and demand the answers.
Thank you. That question has come up a lot.
Yeah, hi. Hi, my name is Jeff Hogue. I'm the battalion chief in charge of the wildfire strategy with the Amador El Dorado unit. And I want to expand on the question you had about home hardening and the volunteer program as well. So I'll start with the volunteer program. Number one, you mentioned the Firewise communities. So that's obviously, that is like a grassroots effort where you get together with your neighbors and you guys create a plan. You get together and it goes through the process through NFPA. and they will certify you to address your wildfire problem in your community. And there's an advantage to doing that, actually, and specifically in El Dorado County. Last El Dorado County became a part on the fire risk reduction community list. And what that is, it is a certification or a acknowledgement that your community has done what they can to address the wildfire risk for the county. And in this case, we did it in unincorporated El Dorado County. And by being a part of a FireWise community, since El Dorado County is on that list, you are eligible for an insurance rate reduction. What that is, that's not our decision, but you are eligible under the Safer from Wildfires legislation that's come out recently. So there's an opportunity for volunteering. And along with that, in line with Senator Alvarado Gil's initiative to extend the Qualified Entities Program. So in El Dorado County, on the West Slope, we've trained over 70 qualified assessors. And what those are is those are your neighbors that can go out to your house and give you an assessment on your defensible space and your home hardening. This is more intense than just your average inspector coming out to your home and saying, hey, you need to make sure you cut your bushes back or this, that, or the other. They will come out and do a full assessment. We put them through a 2-day thorough training. They go out and they get some hands-on experience. And then what you do is you invite them out and they will help address some of those issues that you may have. So addressing things like home hardening, addressing things like your defensible space and where you can make improvements. So those are 2 areas that you can volunteer to either help your neighbors. Again, these are very grassroots types of things. So having that qualified entity program continue, I know it's been successful here in El Dorado County, and there's other areas within the state that are also working on building upon that. Now, in terms of home hardening, this is a space that's been getting a lot of attention lately. There's been a lot of research that's going along with multiple agencies, including CAL FIRE, IBHS, the Institute for Business and, gosh, I always forget that one, Business and Safety, Home Safety. Anyway, they are specifically addressing home hardening. Now, IBHS, you can Google this, they have what's called a wildfire prepared home. They have a wildfire prepared and wildfire prepared plus home. And what that is a higher standard. That's what is required by current building code to protect your house from an oncoming wildfire. So that's addressing things like openings in your buildings, what type of roofing materials that you have, the type of siding, and even addressing things like the clearance in what we're calling the ember resistant zone around the home. So those are some resources and tools that you can use. And if you don't want to go as far as doing an IBHS wildfire prepared home, because quite frankly, that can be a rather extensive thing to do, there are other ways to do it too. CAL FIRE has a list out right now. It's called the low-cost retrofit list. And those are like 10 low-cost things that you can do to your house to improve that survivability profile for your house. That's things like making sure your gutters are clean, putting gutter guards on, closing gaps. Again, going back to that ember resistant zone, that 5-foot zone around the house that we were finding is so important in actually protecting your home from an oncoming wildfire. So those are just a couple of things that you can do within that space. And again, we're constantly working in here to make improvements. CAL FIRE has a damage inspection team that will go out after every fire. In fact, now we're required after every single fire, regardless of size, to go out and assess the homes that are within 300 feet of that fire. And why are we doing that? So we can start to gather data, so we can start to understand what's burning down these homes. And again, those things like that ember resistant zone, those home hardening initiatives that are happening right now, those are all directly related to that. So again, those are some resources that you can use. We're diligently working in this space to try to make improvements, much more so than we were 15, 20 years ago. So that's what I have for home hardening, defensible space, and if there's any other questions, we can.
Thank you, Chief. That was really informative. And I know there's places where you can go to get information on the various programs that the Chief talked about. While we're sort of on El Dorado County, since we are here in the county and the city area, there's a county ordinance 5186. It's a good neighbor policy. Chief Stephen, can Can you talk a little bit about how that works, or? Martin,
The
Battalion Chief Goldberg.
Thanks. What the specific question is just
So,
what is it?
the good neighbor, defensible space, what does that mean?
Okay, so El Dorado County, and there's a few representatives here, so they might help me out, but waving over there. So El Dorado County has the El Dorado County Ordinance that the Lake Valley Fire Protection District works closely with El Dorado County in the enforcement of that ordinance. And so that ordinance mirrors, for the most part, the Public Resource Code. It's called 4291. We've talked about home hardening and such. That's not part of the ordinance. We're strictly speaking vegetation management around the house. We're talking 0 to 5 foot zone, 0 to 30, 5 to 30, 30 to 100. It's the work that you can do, ember resistant zone, lean, clean, and green, and then that 30 to 100 is reduced fuel zone. Now, that...
I'm gonna back you up.
Okay.
Both Martin and
Come on.
Martin and I were both on the Defensible Space Working Group that worked to put together specifically this ordinance.
The good neighbor policy of that, which is different than the state's public resource code and unique to the county, and we really appreciate this, is that your structure may only, how do I want to put this? So you are also responsible for the 100 feet of your neighbor's property. So meaning if you own a vacant lot, or if you have a larger parcel, and the end of your parcel is within 100 feet of your neighbor's parcel, you are responsible for that zone in the area of defensible space. So maybe it's within the 30-foot zone of their property. That means your property needs to be lean, clean, and green because it is adjacent to a neighboring property. And there's a process for us to come out to do an inspection and to look at that neighboring property, and we can issue a defensible space inspection, essentially a notice of violation to that property owner to let them know that they're in violation of the good neighbor policy. And in many cases, we get really good compliance. We have homeowners that just didn't know that they were in violation of that policy, that they were impacting the neighbor's house, and work has been gotten done. So that's the good neighbor policy.
Yeah, just like you said. So what it does is 4290 will take you to the property line. So that's as far as the state can require you to go for defensible space. But this enhancement that came along with this ordinance, what it really does is leverages the science that we know that if you have 100 feet of defensible space, it does two things. Number one, greatly increases the survivability profile of your structure. And then the other part of it too is it gives operational space for firefighters. It gives us an opportunity when the fire is approaching your house to come in and make a stand. If you haven't done the work ahead of time, you know, it's the firefighters can't go in there. They can't be as effective as they can if a fire we're approaching hits that 100 feet of defensible space, intensity lowers, then we can go ahead and work on that perimeter control and protecting your home. So that was the purpose of including the good neighbor part as part of the ordinance.
Good team effort there, Chiefs, thank you. Sort of back to this insurance question. You know, I'm just a rudimentary student of some of these things, but I believe that we saw a presentation not too long ago where there's now technology that would actually allow the insurance companies to really zone in on where the issues are instead of having a swath of homes and neighborhoods and communities. If something happens over here, they want to take a huge thing and say, everybody in this area gets. But I think there's technology now that allows them to target. Would that be correct?
Chris Anthony just left, but he's the perfect one to answer this question. Yes, there is progress on it. It is new. And instead of getting, you know, the Google Earth image of a whole bunch of tree canopy, they're actually looking at the fuels treatment that's taken place over the years between the Forest Service and the state and the local authorities. And then it's also taking into account and the topography of the terrain, right? So that if you're in a drainage or you're not in a drainage, you're on a north aspect or a south aspect, all of those affect your vulnerability with fire. It takes all of that stuff into account, and it's giving a better risk assessment. Rock Rose Insurance is one of the ones that's kind of spearheading and leading that, and we're working with them in the basin on quite a few projects, mainly on the Nevada side right now, and only on commercial property or HOA property. They haven't got into the residential property yet, but it's coming. And so new technology, new approach at looking at the assessment for the insurance companies, all a good thing. And then they have a group of underwriters or whatever. I don't understand the insurance program very well, but they have underwriters that are writing that insurance based on their recommendations with this new technology. So that is something on the positive that's coming about.
I hope, Senator, that the insurance commissioner is up on some of these things. Martin.
Can I take just a quick moment? So one thing that we're doing in the entire basin, but speaking of Lake Valley Fire District and the city, our effort as well as Tahoe Douglas, we're using a software called Fireside. That software, when you request a defensible space inspection from us, if we get authorization to do a complete 360 around that property, that Fireside software then it gives us, I'm watching Chief Anthony walk in. So that Fireside software is a tool that we're using to get ground level. So AI is great. The technology is out there. Information can be gathered. How we're gonna make a difference and how we're gonna shift this paradigm when it comes to risk assessment, it's gonna be through us, fire districts, fire agencies, getting onto your property, doing these assessments, and not just your property, your neighbor's property. We want to get onto every property within South Lake Tahoe, Lake Valley Fire District, Tahoe. We want to do a complete 360 around every property utilizing Fireside software. And that data is going to be used to shift and can be used. There's already studies looking at it. There's trials happening, utilizing the data that's coming off of this software. So new technology, great stuff.
Thank you very much. I have a question I just thought of. Since our electricity and our internet often goes out on, let's say, a Wednesday, do you recommend people have home radios, because that, like battery operated radios at home, so they could still get the information to be able to evacuate or stay in place or which route to go? Anybody want to answer that? Or is that just a no-brainer?
It's kind of it's a little bit of a no-brainer. We don't normally use like radio stations anymore to get out information, but we don't have one, right? But with that said, there are other emergency channels on radios you can get that are handheld, that are battery operated or crank operated. There's a bunch of products out there that are available that would even scan like local channels and whatnot. So yeah, I would, I do, and I would recommend that you have other ways of communicating if you can.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to add, many of our local sheriff's offices have addressed this question as well, and every county uses kind of different technology, but I live in Amador County. We choose to still have a landline, and on that landline, we'd be getting calls if we sign up for, I think it used to be Red Alert, it's just changed to a different system, but definitely working with your sheriff department, because they are often charged with getting that information out to us. So working hand in hand with our fire districts.
So what we're going to do now, we've exhausted most of the handwritten questions, and as we promised, we're going to go back to our tables, and you can talk eyeball to eyeball and ask any questions that maybe you've thought of that we didn't, or get more detail on something, so we can start going out there. And I hope you can stay a little while.
Absolutely.
We sure appreciate you coming. So anybody, the one question the last one is, what one thing would you do better if the community could help you do it? What is that one thing?
I think the one thing that I would do better is to ensure that the money that's been promised through voter propositions for water infrastructure, some of our aging water systems and above-ground storage was actually delivered to the local level.
You're basically offering up a lottery ticket? Is that where you're going with this?
That's a tough one, huh?
Yeah, it comes down to the same thing for me almost every time. It's people and resources. So we can always do more with more people, more resources, and that's almost always in the terms of money. You know, the one thing that doesn't cost money that I would love to see more of is things like Firewise communities, people actively getting engaged. It's really nice to see all of you out here, but we have 22,000 people in the city of South Lake Tahoe, and I would love to have this information readily available to everybody. And we do, all of us do we have a really concerted effort at social media and getting information out into the public on websites and the forum. We have a wildfire expo coming up. We have Fire Fest. There's all sorts of ways that we try to do public education and get that information out to you. I used this analogy earlier, and I said I wouldn't do it, but maybe I'll throw it out there. The concept here a lot of the time is very similar to like raising your own kid. If you just send your kid off to school and think the teacher's going to handle everything for you and you're going to get a great product in return, it's really not the case. You still need to be a parent. And as a homeowner, as a community member, as a whatever it is you do in your professional life, we do an awful lot, but it also comes down to you managing your property and taking care of your house and being engaged and being well informed. So you can't just rely, there's no one magic bullet is really where I'm going with that. Defensible space, fuels work that we push all the time, that's only one component of many. So I would really encourage you to look at all the information that gets pushed out through the Forest Service, through CAL FIRE, through your local districts, city fire department. We have an awful lot of information available for you to help yourselves, even though the insurance is sort of in shambles right now. You're giving yourself a much better shot. Pass it on from there. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk.
Before we leave, Christy, did you want to wrap it up? One thing she told me about the RCD
I was wondering if I
program
might be able to share, because I think, you know, I want to echo what Chief Drennan said. A couple things in addition. So it is, I think a lot of it becomes our personal responsibility, but we also have 156,000 of federal public acres of public land surrounding us. We also have thousands of acres of state and other. That's at a place where our behaviors and the behaviors of our visitors sometimes can start that fire. So being smart about what we do in the woods, whether it's, you know, whether we're off-highway vehicle use, we're using firearms, we're, you know, having a campfire, that making sure you know what to do that in a safe manner and know when it's not the right time to do it. It may not be, I want my campfire, but even though it may seem like it's okay and safe to do it, it may not be. So check in to make sure when they're, and I realize there's different ordinances throughout around the basin based on jurisdiction around open flames. Pay attention to those things. Make sure that when you're towing your vehicle, maybe it's your boat to the lake, that you're not dragging your chains, because there's all these different types of ignition sources that we don't maybe realize that we could be that point of ignition. So I encourage all of you to be mindful of that. And the other thing is I recognize is we may not have neighbors that are capable of doing the work that's needed to do, and that's where it takes a village. It's kind of like Chief Drennan saying, hey, if you rely on the educators to do all of it, they're doing a fantastic job, but it still takes coaches, it still takes parents, it still takes all this other things. Let's lean in and give our neighbors a hand to make their home safe, because that's ultimately going to make our own home safe. So thanks for being here tonight.
Okay, thanks so much. I would say that I want to say thank you to all of you so much who are up on the stage. I want to say thank you to all of you so much, CTC, TRCD, STPUD, who came to the booths Firewise. Thank you so much, and I think that the word clearly that demonstrates tonight is collaboration from everybody. Shelley, I can't say how awesome that was to see you jump up on stage and just answer that question. You weren't even prepared because you're just sitting down. It really does take all of us, and so we really appreciate all of you being here, and thank you for everything that you do. And now we'll all go out here, and if people have questions that they just want to ask, you know, individually, that's really great too. So thanks for this opportunity. We really appreciate it.
It seems like we're sort of the gold standard of mountain towns when it comes to this. I really appreciate it, and thanks for letting me tell jokes about you. I know I'll pay for it later.